Did you find yourself thrown from the world of competitive gymnastics into a game, nay, the game to the death in Parmistan with virtually no explanation as to why it had to be you who was going to compete? Was this all because the Special Intelligence Agency needed you, and only you, to secure land in the Hindu Kush Mountains for a satellite monitoring station for the Star Wars defense program? Did you find that your gymnastic acumen came in so handy that you could fell all comers, sanity be damned? If so, you may have just been enlisted into the Unkind Rewind, where we saw an entirely new martial art invented from scratch, Gymkata.
Thrill me.
I'm gonna name you Coda. You get a name too, Podo.
Got good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
You too? You got a boner too? Blue Steel.
Greetings from the city founded as Pig's Eye, where I, Josh Dugan, have found myself surveying up my surroundings with a gymnast's eye in the event I should have to fend off hordes of crazies. Coming to us from New York, where gymnastics and martial arts have always been central to his life, is my co-host Schaum McGrath. Have you been approached by suits to participate in feats of strength for our country this week, Sean?
I've been approached, just not by suits. I think they're just people screaming about made-up countries. But that's just kind of my day in, day out. That has nothing special about this week. I am noticing, though, in my surroundings, what can I leap off of? What can I grab? I mean, there's like the turnstiles in the New York City subway system. Like I'm looking at them in a whole new way.
Oh, for sure. I can't imagine you wouldn't.
It's just, it's like kind of like defensive driving in a way.
Yeah.
My perspective is totally changed. Everywhere I go now, I just think if shit were to go down, what are my resources available to handspring off of?
Yeah, for sure. Now joining us this time around is our special guest, who we have to assume has been dusting off his kicks from the couch, Greg Schaum. Thanks for joining us and gracing us with your presence, Greg.
First off, Yakmala. Yakmala.
Greg, why don't you tell the listener who didn't bust their hump to master the parallel bars and missed last week's Q's and T's installment a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Greg Schaum. I am a lover of movies and sports and music. I used to be the Royals radio post-game show host in 2008, 2009. That led to a career as a baseball agent. And then that led me to starting my own company with a couple other guys called Klutch, where we recruit former college and professional athletes for sales jobs around the country.
Nice. That sounds awesome. Any clients that Sean and I are both in a very long-term dynasty league. Mm-hmm. Are there any names that Sean and I who are like real sickos would know?
Chris Herman, longtime major league catcher. I have him. He and I become friends, and he is working in Houston based off of me mentoring him and putting him into the professional world. And quite a few other former AAA guys from the Mets, Rockies, Phillies, Twins and Dodgers, and most recently from the Lincoln, I think they're the Lincoln Salt Dogs.
Okay.
Yeah, and some NFL guy too, some college football players, female soccer players, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Nice. Now, I believe both of you were at playoff games of a sort last night.
Yeah.
I guess, Sean, you can go first, since yours was not as dark a outcome as Greg's was.
Well, depending on who you're rooting for, certainly.
Sure.
But went to go support the Lynx last night in Game 1 of the WNBA Finals against the Liberty over at Barclays. And funny story, they showed kind of the celebrity row over the course of the game. You know, Sudeikis was there, Meek Mill, Aubrey Plaza, Gail King, and inevitably there always seemed to be like half of a person visible in the shot. It was this Asian woman, and it was just funny that she kept showing up like nearby but never being introduced, or never getting the Krylon across the bottom of the screen. I go to see a screening today of a movie. I see the Steve McQueen movie, Blitz, about the Blitzkrieg in the London Blitz in the 40s. And lo and behold, I sit next to her. And she is talking about the game last night to a friend of hers. I just casually just kind of, insert myself into the conversation. And again, like, introduce myself. She tells me her name. I go to the lobby, search her name, plus New York Liberty. Yeah, it's the fucking owner. So her name is Clara Soy, I believe. She is the owner of the New York Liberty. Clara Wu Sai. And yeah, very nice person. A little awkward. But
it's funny to, hey, I saw you all over the Jumbotron yesterday, and then it's the fucking owner.
It's the fucking owner. But I am a semi-retired actor. I did a little acting. I didn't want to sit next to this person for 2.5 hours and have it be tense, but I did my best, kind of sort of bipartisan rooting on WNBA.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a really great game, but unfortunately for about 99% of the people there, it did not go their way.
Sure, especially hers.
But hey, it's a quick 5-game series. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
A very strange best of 5 in an NBA Finals.
But the Lynx came back they were down 18 in the fourth, right?
They were down 15 with 5 minutes left to go. I think 18 at one point, but yeah, 5 minutes left to go. They were down 15, and somehow it just, an insane end of that game. Anyway, that was my day.
Yeah. Greg, you were at playoff games last 2 nights, right?
Yeah. So last 2 nights, and I did not mention earlier, I am actually a retired actor as well. Not semi. I am retired. I was a actor in Los Angeles between 1995 and 2003. Have not done a bit of acting since then. So retired for sure.
Hard R.
Yeah. So last 2 games, everybody at work says I'm bad luck. I went with my best friend to the first game, and I took my son last night. I will tell you, Sean, you asked me if I'm going to continue gymkatting. And when I'm walking up, yesterday was easily the worst seats my son has ever had in his life. He's been very spoiled with me being an agent, having tickets from people, but we sat in the 4th level last night. And actually, they weren't bad. They were great, in the environment.
It builds character. Tell your
Yeah, they have
son.
those silver pommel horse things as you walk up the aisles to go up to the 4th level.
Yes.
And I tried my gymkatting on the Yankees fans, and my legs do not work like they did when I was 14 years old when I first saw this film. So I was hoping my son, who's 15, would be able to gymkata his way up the thing, and he did it. He did a admirable job. His dad is not quite as solid at gymkata. I don't think I could go over and win this competition like I could have when I was 14 or 15.
Well, you know what? I mean, here's what I'll say, Greg. Is you start him early, and you're there for him. You're supportive, and then maybe down the road, when he needs you most, you'll kind of lend him a helping hand out of nowhere.
Yeah, or I'll get captured, and he'll think I'm dead, and he'll come over to fight to save his dad and fight my honor.
I hope, Greg. I hope you take an arrow in the back like a champ, the way that this guy does.
Like it, and I will give a unbelievable soundbite yell. One of those, yeah.
I hope that soundbite occurs like maybe a second and a half after the impact.
Yeah. Don't.
No foreshadowing there.
Oh, before we get too far into the episode, where can our listeners find you, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a great website, clutchmfm.com, clutch with a K. We also focus on Heart of a Lion candidates. So if you know anybody out there that's trying to find their way, looking for a sales career, already has a sales career, we will mentor them, we will train them, we will help find them jobs. But yeah, certainly I love helping former athletes, and the professional baseball world has been a place that I've obviously take a lot of pride in, and helping those guys move on away from their careers.
Do you think Jonathan Cabot has what it takes to maybe work with you?
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
What an
For
amazing
sure.
opportunity that
Yeah.
would have been.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
Now, as I mentioned last week, I saw this, and I didn't see it for the first time until just over like a decade ago. It left its mark on me, though. Sean, what was your past with Gymkata?
Gymkata was a name like the name like the name of a bully or something. Like just whispers and shadows for me. Like I knew of it, I knew the cover of the box, walked past it enough times. I wasn't like super like passionate about martial arts films as a kid, so like that's probably the only reason I missed it. Um it's yeah, it's almost insane that it took me this long to get to it. But yeah, I'd never seen anything other than maybe a snippet or two here or there.
Greg, how long do you think it was since you last saw this?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it since I was in high school. So I graduated high school in 1990. I think that was the last time that I would stay up late at night and flip it to the channels. It'd be on TBS or whatever it was on late night.
Yeah, right on. So getting to the follow-ups on the pre-interview from last week, we're gonna jump right into the clips, and we asked what you remembered the plot of the film being, and you said
Kurt Thomas, former U.S. gymnast, is sent into a country that's not named to win some sort of contest where he has to survive the day and take on, and there's other people playing as well. And I think it's like the Highlander rule where there can only be one person alive at the end. So throughout his journey, he fights the most random people. And then I think there's a bad guy that cheats in it. I know there's some karate going on and some weird like pitchfork stuff, but Kurt Thomas obviously, finds everything possible to do like the what's the horse thing that we swivel around the
pommel horse.
pommel horse. I mean, he does all sorts of like tricks and stunts, but a very weird and silly movie that I think that anytime I had buddies sleep over when I was growing up, that seemed to always be on cable, and we'd always watch parts of it. So I mean, I think that I've probably seen the full movie a few times, but parts of it like 50 times. It's just one of those movies that was always on back in the day, and I can't believe that. Where the heck am I going to find this movie now? I guess I'm going to find out.
So pretty good recall for something you hadn't seen in, roughly 3 decades. Starting with the country, it obviously wasn't set in a real country. Was there anything about Parmistan that surprised you upon your return?
Yeah, I mean it's a bad place, right? It's a bad place. There's some bad people over there. There's a lot of people that were taken advantage of as extras that get run over by horses. Hopefully you guys saw that. That was awesome.
Yeah, that guy got fucked. And like I saw like 2 or 3 of the other actors like check on him like before they cut. It was a very strange like that they left that in there because he gets dropped hard and like there's some mild concern, but like we're not going to stop rolling.
No.
God forbid. And we're going to keep that shot. That's a great stunt. Like
And then,
if you're talking to your stunt team later, you're like, wow, it really looked like you got hit by a horse. Good job. Yeah. It doesn't look like you were acting at all. Because he wasn't.
Yeah. The extras are phenomenal in this movie, and the head of this country looks like the grandfather from Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
That likes to yell out Yakmala. And why is he bad? I mean, why is this game? It's so many questions. Hopefully, we'll be able to answer those. Maybe you guys can help me answer those. This country is a bad country, but you have to have a place to put your space station, early warning, nuclear bomb
It's the only
system, and
place. Yeah,
it's
it
the
really
only place.
is.
And you can't
Geographically
send
speaking.
you can't send in the army because that's not, you can't do that,
Yeah.
right?
No,
So
no.
yeah.
Greg, did any of like those early, like say plot loopholes register for young Greg?
Absolutely not. No
Okay.
way. I mean, I just wanted to be entertained, and I was entertained.
I
To
mean,
take
I
a
would
page from
posit that I was
Maximus, I
still
was
entertained.
Yeah. To take a page from Maximus and Gladiator, I was definitely entertained. Still am.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I bought it. I found the movie. I bought it on Fandango, Voodoo, Movies at Home. So I'm putting a little bit of a residual into the God
Yeah.
rest his soul, Kurt Thomas's family. I had no idea that the man had passed, and we were talking about if he's still in SAG or not. I don't know how that works, but hopefully we've made somebody happy today with a
Yeah, I mean his
$9.99 residual.
his estate
purchase.
will
Yeah,
we'll get that.
yeah. I'm sure I'll get a card soon.
I mean there's somebody in some basically shuttered marketing division who just spit their coffee out when you
Yeah.
bought Gymkata.
No doubt.
I don't know about that
Respect.
because how did this get made? I think recently redropped the episode that they did like 11 years ago. Because they do like a Monday matinee thing.
Well, it's getting some new life, I guess.
Yeah. So hopefully this is really like in the zeitgeist. Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of great movies on your list, but there was one movie on your list, Greg, and it was this.
I knew it would be
Yeah.
Gymkata.
Yeah.
Yeah. How could it not be?
Was anyone else struck by Parmesan being basically medieval?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah, was there I mean, other than like the kind of covert government ops shit in the beginning, there's no guns, right? Like
Right.
once we get to Palmistan, it's scimitars and arrows, fire, everything is outdated.
Sickles, scythes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's no firearms at all. A lot of knives.
It's very reminiscent of the great musical Brigadoon. I think they step through into a world of that they can't control, that has this spiritual, almost anti-Disney feel to it. I think that's kind of what it is. Yeah.
Maybe this is MGM's middle finger at Disney.
Yeah. Let's go with that. Let's go with that.
Did you guys notice that the tour company on the boat, they had I only noticed this because it was in English, but they had spelled Mediterranean with one R.
I didn't notice that.
And they spelled Caspian with a K, but it said like Mediterranean and Caspian Sea Tour Company or something, or Travel Mediterranean and Caspian Sea Tour Company or something like that. But it was all of the words were in English, and I would have been fine with C being spelled that way if it wasn't in English. But like, why is that signage in English and then spelled that way?
You know what I kept thinking is the people that were used for this movie as the extras, or the guys running with guns and they ran the same way. Have they ever seen this movie? I mean, did they have any idea what they're like? All of a sudden, this town, I can't remember where this was filmed. I looked it up, but where it was filmed, Yugoslavia. So they go there, they use the entire town to get run over by horses and chase after people with pitchforks and play crazies and chop off fake arms. Did they ever watch the movie? Did they have any idea what actually? I mean, they thought it was probably a huge deal or a huge movie, or they just were filmed just going about their normal lives, had no idea what was going on around them, which seemed that way sometimes too.
Yeah. On the street, during the foot chase on the street, it seemed like there were people who were not aware they were on a live set.
Yes.
The town of Crazies It was actual people from an asylum
Oh,
that they brought in, and they were, from my understanding, and this is Kurt Thomas said this in a later interview. So who knows if this is actually true, because it's not like he was on the production team. But they were provided alcohol and a buffet for their time.
do you think my man Gomez was actually killed there in real life? They killed him. The crazy. That's why he's never been anything since then. I mean,
It's entirely
that was a
possible.
sad. I mean, that was a sad. That was the one I referenced earlier. The character I liked that he didn't get. That was not a hero's death. You know,
No,
Gomez
we
knew
could.
there was crazies. He warned everybody the crazies, and then he just ends up as a scarecrow.
It was so
Yeah.
depraved we couldn't even see the death being,
Yeah.
taking place. That's how awful
Yeah.
it was. Yeah, the town of crazies. I mean, this is kind of an esoteric reference, but there is something very, very similar to that in a video game where in Resident Evil 4, where the cop has to go to this town and then the gates close and he's shuttered in. And it's just this entire town, old men, old women, sickles, knives, pitchforks coming at him. And, like, is it 100 people or something he has to go through in that town? Like,
It seems like more.
it is phenomenal, like the odds stacked up against him. And it really like he kind of gets cornered and then, obviously helped to the rooftops by his dad there, right? But like, what is the like ascribed outcome there? Like, what was he supposed to do? Like everything else that he encounters, okay, you got to climb this rope, you got to get past this thing, you got to do that. Like but you just enter this town and it's like kill everyone. Like I was really unclear on like what was the intended outcome before his dad
Well,
stepped in.
but it played in his favor too. I mean, there's a pommel horse in the middle of the freaking place,
Thank
right?
God for that. I wonder why they
And
put that there.
he happens to have fresh chalk in his hands when he's doing any bar work
It
there.
was chalked up hard in this
I
movie.
think that's what the whole movie's about. Is in the beginning. There's some things I noticed in the beginning that were wild, but the guy that brings him over there clearly said that his dad didn't have all the tricks to make it happen, right? So to me, I think it really worked out. It was almost like he had the secret to win that crazies that my man Gomez didn't.
I love the banquet the night before where he's like, "Hey, do you know my dad?" He's like, "Yeah, your dad. He was great, but he's dead." Like how,
Good guy though.
yeah, he finally gets this, both the reveals, right, about like the what happened to my father, and of course there's my dad, felt very muted. I mean, we are taxing poor Kurt Thomas here, his emotional depths. The guy can palm a horse, but like nobody really sat with him and said like, you just found out after your entire life, right, that your father was killed in this thing. It was all question marks your whole life, and now we know. And he was like, okay, well, like more borscht or whatever. And then of course when his dad is revealed, they don't get a hug in there. Like they don't get anything. There's no embrace until of course we got his dad's back lined up with an arrow.
Yeah.
But he certainly celebrates. He celebrates with his dad in the back with an arrow in him. He's gonna make it. I'd like to think his dad makes it.
Well, he does. His dad
Yeah.
does make it
Well,
because we
well, I
see
mean,
him
he's
I
talking
think he
after
makes
the
it.
horse.
Yeah, I think he makes it well beyond the movie. I think their relationship is. I like to think of beyond Gymkata. I mean,
I'd
it's
like
a
to think
wonderful
that
relationship.
Pamistan had state of the art medical facilities able
Yeah.
to kind of deal with an arrow in the back. Yeah.
No doubt.
Well, it's like the most common cause of death in Parmistan is arrow.
Is it Parm with an R?
Parmistan. Yeah.
Okay. That makes me hungry.
I liked the banquet scene was funny to me because there were two different weird things about it. You could tell that any of the scenes where it was the tight shot of Buck Artilian, the Khan, there's a tight shot on him. That was clearly the last shot of the day, and it was so much colder then than it was for anybody else because he had like the steam coming off of his breath whenever he was speaking, and it was coming off like strong there. So it was like obviously just the way the blocking schedule or the shooting schedule was blocked that day. Like those were the last shots, but it was also funny. They had all of those shots of Kurt Thomas at the end of the table against the wall with a candelabra, kind of in front of him. In the frame at least, and it was just so many reaction shots of Kurt Thomas sitting there by himself that you're like, okay, it felt like there maybe should be other faces in the frame on those, but
Not a lot of depth in that. Not a lot of depth in that face of his.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure he didn't really have much of a like. His training wasn't in acting craft.
You know, they took him to Sandy Meisner ahead of time. And
No, I don't think they're
No.
doing a lot of scenes where they're like, cut. Okay, let's try it again. This time, Kurt. Think. Yeah, obviously you've been through a lot here, right? But like, you have to hide a lot of this. You have to get, so internalize, and let's
Yeah.
see that. Let's just let that play out. Okay, guys, we're gonna go again. Kurt, whenever you're ready. Like
And-
this was like, you got the shot. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Right.
Think about how he was shown a clear romantic lead in the very first scene. The girl that follows him into the locker room and gets shushed away. Did you notice that girl?
Oh,
She's
yeah.
clearly
Oh, yeah.
was cast originally to be the female lead. Okay, we're going to Back to the Future to you and replace you with somebody else that doesn't talk to him, but they immediately have an attraction to each other.
They kiss before they
Yeah,
talk, I believe.
yeah. One of the most awkward. Yeah, that was awkward.
I mean,
yeah.
we are meant to believe that they've been around each other for an entire training period.
Oh yeah, those two trainers, the guy with the Falcon and I mean, obviously those two certainly they know the ins and outs of this place somehow. But it was like watching the training sequences in the Iraqi movies. Just a
Oh,
great
for sure.
montage of action. Yeah.
It is a very strange cut, and like, yes, that girl, losing her.
Bayani.
No, the early girl,
Okay.
the groupie, the girlfriend, whatever. Like, it feels like we lost 15, 20 minutes between those two scenes, right?
Oh, for sure.
We have him coming off of this amazing routine, where it was, for what purpose. Was it
No
a
idea.
demonstration? Was it an exhibition? Who knows? And then we jump to like so far into the movie where it's like almost like he's giving him kind of final details about Parmesan and what this is. Like, we've lost any kind of character building for Kurt. We've lost any type of relationship. Like, what's his status? Like, we didn't even get any mention of, like had Josh said in the intro, of why it has to be Kurt. Just that you're good at gymnastics, and we'll help you with.
We'll leverage your dad's death, like, to get you into doing this.
We'll help you with the other shit. Like, that's not as important. But like, why not make his dad like an expert in karate, and he always grew up with karate or something like that? Everything has to be like forced in this pretty milquetoast training montage. Like, let's face it, this isn't Hearts on Fire Rocky 4, right? He has a
Right.
couple of these like really stilted coaches, and I love like the poor man's Bruce Lee wisdom that he gives him about the axe. Like, I sat with that and was like, okay, then axes, the silence. It was, thank God they brought that back. And he was able to like suddenly determine when an arrow is flying through the air. Very prescient that that was able to come back. But yeah, like, I feel like early on we needed like 10 more minutes with Kurt. We needed like some more motivation than just, yeah, your dad went over here and we don't really know what happened to him.
Yeah.
And like, let's get like a little temperature on Kurt as a normal guy before we kind of throw him the most dire of all ultimatums. Like, he is like, the fate of the free world rests on this guy's shoulders. Like, this is the early warning system for fucking nukes.
Yep.
Right? Like, no pressure. And I would have loved to have known like what these other guys, these other competitors, like what they would have wanted to do as well. Like half of them look like junior high school gym teachers. Like there was like there should be an age limit on some of these guys. I think there was only one, like the Asian guy who like, and maybe
Thorg for sure.
Thorg, yeah. It looked like somebody
It-
stuck a bike pump in him and just inflated.
900 years, no outsiders ever won. So sign me up. Sign me
Yeah.
up. No, 900 years, no other outsiders ever won. So let's just basically head out to our deaths.
And are we meant to believe that there are years where no one wins, right?
Only the insiders win. No outsiders won in 900 years. Yeah.
Can't there be like a year, like if they do the game, there doesn't have to be a winner, right?
But also, like, what is winning? Like killing the town of crazies, or
it's
like
getting out of the town of crazies and getting back to like where Kurt Thomas is riding into the horse at the end.
where killing a mullet guard, right? I mean that guy's position was so strange too, right? Like,
yeah,
very like he was gonna marry the princess, but now he's also serving as
we're talking about Samir here.
Samir, yeah.
Okay.
He's, you know, somebody who at one point like seemed to be following the rules to the T. Kill that guy, right? I love that fucking ninja that was like with his trophy kill. He was like, I got him, and there was the right arrow right in the belly.
Yeah.
But
He
like
broke
that
the
seemed
rules.
that seemed to be right. That seemed to be Samir like following the fucking rules, and then it's almost like he's working.
Well, that was when the coup is in effect when he stops. He starts the pursuit early, and that's the signal to the men that he's recruited into the army that they are now basically operating on their own agenda.
Yeah, it felt a little. Obviously, it wasn't very clear.
Fleshed out. You're saying something wasn't clear about this? About the like larger like political machinations going on in Gymkata?
That's the only thing.
And how long had his dad been there after? Does the game happen every month? I thought
obviously
every
masked
year?
up the entire time, right? Like
yeah.
As soon as he takes off that mask and he's not Parmastani
and hasn't aged a day.
Looks great.
Right. Yeah.
Like
working out.
Just got
like,
just for got the just for men in. Beard. Yep.
Yeah, getting his fitness in, sweating in that V right there on the shirt.
Yeah. Are we meant to believe that he went to Parmesan to be the US representative for the game like the year before, and that would make him like in his late 40s probably at the youngest, which is kind of insane that you're asking someone that old to
see. I missed that detail. I missed the detail that his dad went the year before.
Well, we don't know. I don't know when it is. We're guessing. That's absolutely not established.
Yeah, I guess my assumption was that like Kurt Thomas's dad went missing in his youth, and it was just like this cloud that hung over their family.
Sure.
But again, they
didn't de-age him like Jeff Bridges and Tron Legacy.
They didn't give us that meaty like second or third scene where we're like kind of building to this. So
maybe somebody's wish at one point that one of the insiders, their wish was that nobody ages in Barzakhstan or wherever. That might be what it is. You know, I mean, you get whatever wish you want, correct? And that kind of how it works.
Yeah, in a country of just blunt objects, I imagine they have the resources to like never age people.
Yeah.
Now, Greg, were there any elements of the game that came rushing back to you while watching this?
Yeah. So the crazies for sure. The guy that spooked me out when I was younger was the one that had the reverse face.
Oh, that was a nice touch.
That one creeped me out. I forgot it.
Did reverse face bother you more than backless robe priest?
Yes, it did. It did.
Back then or now or both?
Now I would say reverse face has always been number one.
Sure.
Number two is chop off the arm guy with the dramatic scream.
Yeah,
that's number two. And number three, there's actually one of the crazies, a woman that they show quite a bit that's just nimble and fast, always at the front chasing him. Like grandma chasing you. That was a little creepy. the backless guy, I don't know. I guess, call me weird. That didn't bother me as much. I feel like, that's normal in New York City or Los Angeles. So
We never
I'm
get
good.
inside his church, right? We never
Yeah.
see what was in there.
Yeah.
It could have been safe harbor. He just happened to put on the wrong robe that day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have loved, speaking of the guy with
I like that you thought that was the wrong robe, Sean. That's clearly his go-to robe.
at least he wore it that way and not the other way.
Yes, yeah.
But I would have liked that scene that you mentioned, Greg, where the guy chops off his own hand. Could we have gotten some Foley to imply that that was an extremely hot pipe and that he couldn't remove his hand or something? Like, it just felt like I've grabbed this pipe for support and I'm upset with the fact that I needed to support myself. Fuck that hand, it's gotta go.
He
Like,
hates
there-
that pipe, Sean.
Yeah, but like, let your audience know that he hates that pipe, and why not hack the pipe? At least give it a couple whacks. There were a couple little touches like that throughout that was just kind of like, you're so close to just like getting there, getting over the hump a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
I imagine for a kid watching a guy chop off his own hand may have been disturbing.
For sure.
Now you see it every day.
And did the pigs end up eating? I mean, they had to. They had to go. The pigs had to eat that big guy, right? I mean,
Thorg,
that's yeah, they had to eat Thorg, right?
I think
So,
eventually, yeah, but we don't really
and
get that in the movie. We just get death by pitchfork.
why don't all these guys fight together to beat everybody at the same time? I mean, why does Thorg turn on the karate guy? I don't.
Well, I think
that-
only
all the-
one
yeah.
can win regardless, right?
Okay, but did they really ever establish that? I mean, could they not have worked? I mean, did they ever say that? I mean, they didn't. I mentioned the Highlander rule earlier, but I don't
Uh-huh.
think that they ever really did mention that. Could they not have teamed up and kicked ass together or not?
I mean, only one gets a wish, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So eventually, I mean, as much as Kurt Thomas liked Gomez, he knew at some
One of-
point he might have to kill Gomez.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing too. Like, we haven't established that you can do that, right? You haven't established that the first guy who gets across the rope bridge can't just untie or hack or, unravel the ropes for the other guys. Like, it seemed that when Thorg killed the karate guy, and that, by the way, the karate guy was like the only one other than Kurt Thomas who was like in the age range where I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like this is probably a good casting choice rather
Yeah.
than like my dad's friends. But but I thought because that the Parmesan ninja saw him do that, like, okay, Thorg may win, but like there's going to be a technicality or something. Like, it's the only time, right? Like, Thorg's the only one who does this.
Yeah.
Any other guys like betray or sabotage their competitors, right?
I mean, Kurt Thomas tries to save the dude that clearly is limping and tells him to speed up,
Yeah.
only get a spear in his back, within 5 seconds. So Kurt's not playing that dirty game. Kurt's in it to win it and
Because
help
he's an
as many
American.
people as he can. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Greg.
Yep.
It wouldn't be mid 80s US Cold War film if that weren't if the American wasn't the upstanding.
Isn't Borg an American too though? Where's he from?
Thorg, I don't know where. I think everyone's from a different country, right?
Yeah, they have to be. I thought that Thorg was also a former Olympian of some kind because they clearly had some sort of relationship before the game ever began.
I mean, which of us didn't go to school with 3 or 4 Thorgs?
Yeah.
Like it's a very American name.
Thor's just really mad that dude from Revenge of the Nerds, who was also in that Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, stole his career. That's really what gets Thor going, right? I can't think of that actor's name. But that's the guy that took his career.
Ogre.
Yep.
I like to when the karate guy was killed, and Kurt Thomas runs up to him. They did not allow the actor enough time to like calm down his breathing.
Yeah.
So it is the most like out of breath corpse like I've ever seen in a movie. And the funny thing is like Kurt Thomas runs up and immediately checks his pulse. And I'm like, he's good, Kurt. We're good. We just saw.
Yeah.
Like he's fine.
His heart's still pumping.
Yeah, he is breathing just fine.
He moves. Yeah, his movement. Yeah, that's great.
Like, just give the guy a second.
Yeah.
He just had this fight scene. Like, we gotta go. We're losing the light.
Yeah, they were shooting that in golden hour.
Yeah, do your best.
Yeah. Now, did you feel like Gymkata being in this sleepover rotation because of its omnipresence on cable? But like still opting for it was because you were gravitating towards it, or was it a buddy driving the bus, or was it more out of like kind of born from the relative lack of options someone would have like now in the streaming era?
I'm actually really glad you mentioned that because I love to name drop, not name drop because he's not a celebrity, but Michael Lee was my friend growing up as a kid
Okay.
who I would watch movies with. He lives in Italy, I think now, and he'll definitely watch this. But he was the guy. I think he'll say like Gymkata. Yes. That being said, my best friend since fourth grade, Robo Thompson, he and I went to the Royals game 2 nights ago, and I mentioned this podcast to him. He never heard of Gymkata. So I mean, Robo was at my house more than anybody. He never heard of Gymkata. So I clearly was watching it with I think Michael Lee, Maso Oshima. Those are the guys that I think were my movie guys. Robo and I watched a lot of movies together, but we did not clearly did not watch Gymkata. So
I think he's in the
yeah,
majority, right? I think that's
yeah,
safe to say. Like, this is not a movie that really, I mean, I'm a pretty big movie guy. I've never seen it. I knew about it, but like, we are in a very, very special minority of people
yeah.
who've not only heard about this, but seen it. So I think that your friend not having heard of Gymkata is probably the standard.
Okay.
But we get to use this episode to proselytize. So
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this has helped spreading
Yeah.
the word. Hopefully he
Yeah,
checks it
for
out.
sure. Yeah, he's got to check it out now.
He can come over to your house. You own it.
Yeah. I own it.
I bet
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised though if he did see parts of it, because you'd mentioned that, like it's sort of like when I had cable in the early aughts and we had like East and West feeds of all the HBO channels, and I would watch parts of Real Genius twice, maybe 3 times a day, because it would just be on one of the, it'd be on like an East and a West, and then it'd be on another one later. And it wouldn't be hard to have like seen part of Gymkata and just had no idea.
I think like that's true. I think that you've probably people have seen clips of Gymkata not knowing what it is. As part of like a montage of action movies from the 80s. Like the first kind of jolt of a memory was when in the alley scene he does like the split kick to 2 different guys.
Mhm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I think I've seen that. Thank God that those guys knew exactly where their marks were and knew what Kurt Thomas's leg spans were
Skill
like.
set was, yeah.
Yeah.
And he accidentally kicked the guy on the bike and feels so bad about it. How did he not know that guy wasn't a bad guy? He just knew. It's like, he kicked everybody.
You can't be anywhere. You can't be anywhere close to Kurt Thomas when he
Gymkata.
gets going.
Yeah,
Yeah, when he
Gymkata,
starts
yeah.
gymkatting.
Yeah.
I love that Kurt Thomas, like, he has a move, right? He has that. It happened a lot on those like, in maybe the training sequence where he's like he jumps up and he turns the other way.
Mhm.
Like Kurt Thomas had this like ace card, and it was like I can just jump in the air and like flip around and like be facing the other way.
Yeah,
And we're
have a
gonna go
conversation as you and me.
right.
He
Yeah.
fell
Oh,
in
that was
love-
it.
in between.
That was
She
it.
she fell in love with him because of that move.
Yeah, that move.
That was his move.
That's his parlor trick. And
He
they
calls it the
love-
panty dropper.
And violence. He uses it for love and he uses it for violence.
when you
This is my
got
move.
when you got hair like that, you got to have a move.
Yeah.
Like the hair's not going to do it. I was, this movie reminded me in a way of like what like a Dirk Diggler would want to do, right? This movie had like porn star trying to go legit vibes all the way
Yeah.
through it. We
You
actually,
could've put- yeah.
I mean, we don't have the nudity that I was kind of expecting in a movie like this. Usually like nudity and violence in this era go kind of hand in hand.
If it had been canon or New World.
But especially
would.
for an actress who posed for Playboy.
Sure. Yeah.
Who didn't seem
Who
to
did?
have
Techi Akbayani did.
the princess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. I like the Dirk Diggler reference. I mean, during the love scene, just break into the heat will rock you. The heat will roll you. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be perfect. That's a Dirk dig. That's a great
And
recall right there.
he would think, I mean, and he would love rewatching his own work, like
Yeah.
For sure.
how violent this thing was, how like cool it makes Kurt Thomas look. Like
I'm I'm not
Diggler would
wondering
have
if
loved this.
this movie inspired Dirk Diggler, to be who he was. I mean, because Dirk Diggler does so
Yeah.
It,
yeah.
I mean, it really may have. I'm not exaggerating. But like Paul Thomas Anderson's a weirdo. Like
Yeah.
Paul Thomas Anderson's into a lot of weird shit. Like,
There's no way he hasn't seen this.
oh, there's no fucking way he hasn't seen this.
This needs to be showing at the Beverly at Tarantino's theater soon. Like I would fly
I
back out to
honestly,
LA for
I
this.
bet it has been. I would be willing to bet it has been. We could ask if it has been. I'm 100% certain that our guest from season 1, Chad Burns, has seen it there.
What a great theater.
Yeah.
I mean, Kurt Thomas
I love
also
that
is
place.
like 5'5". Like I looked it up. Like it doesn't feel like he's 5'5", maybe because of the kind of people that they've cast around him. Certainly some big dudes. Like when Thorg kind of dwarfs him, and we get to we get to see like Kurt Thomas using his instincts more than just the brute strength.
I wanted to see him. I wanted the walking handstand to come and play at some point against the Crazies. I mean, that training sequence, in the ball hugger shorts, you know, going the stairs. I thought there would be a reason for that. I'm not quite sure. I really understand. I mean, I worked and helped develop future professional baseball players for a long time, and I do definitely want to call some of my strength trainers and see, hey, look, if you're going to be a major league pitcher, you got to be able to do a handstand crawl upstairs.
I'm trying to
Like
think of like how they
that's
could
pretty
have
much
done
how it
that,
works.
right? Like
Yeah.
how we could have got a handstand like walk, even on
Well,
flat ground. That would have.
yeah, to get an only way he could get up to that when his dad saves him, only way he can get up to the window is he has to
Right.
like catapult himself up. So he goes up
Right.
those stairs and he can't get it with his hands, but he's got to catapult up. And maybe there's a bar there and he has the chalk on his hands, and that's how he's able to do it. That's how I'd write. I mean, we're gonna redo this movie. That's what we're doing.
We've got to highlight the handstand walk upstairs. I mean,
remake it with Simone Biles. Remake it with her. I mean,
yeah,
let's,
for
let's
sure.
let's think today. And she's 4'8", so I mean, boom, let's go.
And yeah, like you could also have her like climbing up dumbwaiters and doing weird shit like that.
Yeah.
I will say that like when you watch Kurt Thomas doing, because he's obviously like doing a ton of these fucking stunts, because like who else can do this shit?
Tom Cruise, that's it.
When you watch him, you're like, oh no, I get why they tried this. Because like he's such a crazy athlete that it's like, hey, if this guy wants to like try to make a go at this, why not? Like, why not see if we can make this work?
This just came up to me, and I want to make sure, I want to get your opinion on this. Dude trains his entire life to be an Olympian. 1980, United States does not go to the Summer Olympics. That's taken away from him.
Yeah.
That dream is taken away from him. Gymkata happens. I mean, that makes up for the gold medal he missed out in 1980, right? Like for his soul and his life, and we know now. I mean, that right there, that's deep. That movie is so deep for him compared to not getting the gold medal in 1980. I think that really, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him because a lot of the other athletes didn't get a chance to do gymkatting, and Kurt did, and that made up, for all that years of training.
It's a small window.
Mary Decker never got, like 84. Obviously, she was she, tripped after colliding with Zola Budd when she passed her, but I mean, Mary Decker was like the most decorated American female distance runner in history. Like she had every world record from the 800 to the 10K at various points in her career. And she was injured in 76. She couldn't compete in 80. 84 was her last shot. In 73, she actually like set her first world record. And in 72 at 13 or 14, she was too young to compete. They wouldn't let her compete because she was not old enough. So like the weird the 80 boycott really screwed with a lot of Olympians, especially because they couldn't like you couldn't go pro at that point.
Yeah.
So like you had to maintain amateur status for another 4 years,
Yeah.
which to Kurt Thomas was, not tenable, obviously.
Yeah.
I guess we can, since we're talking about him, just to place this in history for some people. Kurt Thomas was an Olympian on the 76 team when he was still in college at Indiana State. At Indiana State, he was a five-time national champion, leading the ISU men's team to the 1977 national championship, winning the parallel bars and the all-around. Then he took home the NCAA national title in parallel and horizontal bars and the all-around in 1979. He was also the gold medalist in the floor and horizontal bar and the silver medalist in 1979 in the all-around pommel horse and parallel bars at the World Gymnastic Championships in Fort Worth. So yeah, obviously his peak happens the year before what would have been our 80 Olympic entry, and then we boycotted because Soviets invaded Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. But they didn't allow professional athletes to compete until 86. And depending on the sport and the countries, because obviously the Dream Team was the first pro basketball team that we allowed to happen. So some of it was leagues, some of it was there was a lag. It wasn't like a clean, like at 86 everyone could then be professional athletes. But I absolutely get why he was like, oh, I'm not going to be poor for another 4 years.
Yeah. What do you think the negotiation with his agent? And Sean, maybe this is a question you can answer. I think this is for you. I don't want to role play it. I don't, but I'm just curious what you think the negotiation went like to get Kurt Thomas' services from his agent. I'm sure he was with CAA or William Morris, one of the big groups. It had to be, right? Yeah. That talent. What do you think the negotiation went like that for that one, Sean?
I mean, yeah, I mean, he definitely got some representation, being an Olympic hopeful, but like, the Olympic team is big, right? There's hundreds of people on that. How many people are going to get represented? I don't know. They'd probably have to forecast who is the most viable medal winner and then go from there. I don't know if Kurt Thomas was showing up in commercials and doing the talk shows. Like, that's a really good sign if he had great representation, because they're getting him out there, they're getting him talking. We'd have to talk to our R&D department to see if we could dredge up any Kurt Thomas doing the talk shows, because I don't know if this movie really moved the needle enough for him to like. I would think that he'd be on Johnny Carson more for the Olympic stuff than for Gymkata, right? Like, I think that's probably very fair to say.
Yeah. But it was also, he sort of missed his year because he was still like a freshman in college in 76, which is his only Olympic year. So,
and it's not like by the time the Olympics rolled around that we were talking Kurt Thomas in 84, right? So yeah, I mean, like, I think not to put too much of a damper on this, but I think the Gymkata thing for Kurt was something cool that he could share with his friends, and not anything that like provided for him long term. I really don't.
It's interesting that Hollywood did this twice with American Anthem with like Mitch Gaylord, right? In the 84, Hollywood tried this twice. Didn't make it
back-to-back years.
Yeah. And I don't think it's been done since.
But American Anthem, right? Like, it's. I'm glad that you brought that up last week.
I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, it's kind of got this amazing synth back score to it.
Yeah,
that's
Janet Jones is in it, Wayne Gretzky's wife. My wife loves this movie.
That movie has so much more polish and so much more like professionals behind it than a movie where like extras get floored by a horse and like occasionally goes out of focus like this movie does. I mean, American Anthem also, typically this kind of plays out still today, like rom-coms and romances, if done well, can still make a pretty penny.
Yeah.
I'm guessing American Anthem made back its money. I don't think Gymkata did.
Gymkata made more than American Anthem did at the box office.
Jesus Christ. Like
About a million more. Because American Anthem was like not well received critically. I believe it was.
I don't think either of these were well received.
No.
It's
But
just
this did
who's
better at the
going to
box
them, right?
office.
Like the thing is that American Anthem like really tried to play in legitimacy, right? They wanted, and you're right, Greg. Like this was the time where they were like, what is a sport or a hobby that we can make a movie? It's why Rad is a movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything that we can kind of come up breaking, like let's get a breakdancing movie out now.
Yeah.
This was their attempt to kind of go, all right, let's do gymnastics, but like let's make it for the boys.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate we haven't had a curling movie. That's disappointing.
I'm sure there is. It's just
I'm sure, it's just only a Canadian release.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, my grandfather lived in Russia when he was in the military or whatever, and he told me like way back in the 80s that curling was the sport of the future. So, he was certainly ahead of his time.
Oh yeah, I mean, curling clubs are super popular here.
Yeah, yeah.
Now we haven't really mentioned who directed this, but this is directed by Robert Klaus, who directed Enter the Dragon.
Yep.
And Game of Death. And then a bunch of Black Belt Jones.
The thing, obviously, like the big thing here is that Bruce Lee had a charisma and had acting background way more than poor Kurt Thomas.
For sure.
Like Kurt Thomas he's out there, he's giving it all. Like you can definitely see that this guy is committed to this, but he can only be Kurt Thomas.
Right.
He doesn't have 10 or I guess by the time Enter the Dragon, maybe like 7 or 8 movies where he's learned things about him, like learned filmmaking from like greats. And also like had just kind of a real innate charisma. Like Bruce Lee was just like magnetism.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, I mean this is Kurt's first movie. And it shows.
It's his last.
This director though, I think that he called out some favorites. I mean, the composer in this film's pretty darn good. I mean, the opening sequence of music is powerful. Like that's not a straight to video type opening music. I mean, there's some talent there. I don't know who it was, but that's the way I thought about it too. Like they probably spent more on getting the composer over than they did in the entire cast of the movie.
Sean, did you have feelings about the score?
It's funny because. Or
are you going to save it? Are you going to save it for
No.
Okay.
Like I didn't have a problem with the score. Like I feel like.
But for Greg's, just so Greg's filled in, Sean almost always hates the score.
I almost always hate it. Yeah, I think it takes so much away from the movie. Where I would like nitpick is like it wasn't really cut to this score. They put it over the movie kind of as is. It's not like they really timed things well. Right. They had a great kind of editing process.
But that's no reflection on the composer.
No, I think like this. Yeah, if a score in some ways can be like directing, where if you don't notice it, it's a good thing. It's like umping, right?
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't really notice the umpires or referees, it's probably a good game.
Yeah.
So did rewatching Gymkata make you want to watch American Anthem again?
So I watched American Anthem a couple years ago. Like I said, my wife and her identical twin love American Anthem. That was their Gymkata when they were young.
Nice.
And they would force their little brother to watch it. So we watch it. It's awful. And I had to text their brother and be like, guess what I'm watching with your sister right now. I mean, no, I don't really think I need to watch American Anthem again. I mean, I will. If you tell me to, and that is a favorite
I've never seen
I will go watch it. It would make Tina very happy. If you know what, if Tina was comfortable doing podcasts, that could be her podcast with with you, but
Well,
I
she's
don't
seen
think
it too
she's.
recently.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So
We'll
yeah,
have to wait. We'll have to wait like
Wait a
long
couple
time.
decades.
Yeah.
yeah.
Is there any other Olympic fair that this made you curious to revisit?
Olympic fair. Well, like, what do you mean by that?
Well, like either featuring Olympic athletes or like Olympic themed.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think so. Now, you did mention Rad earlier, and I dove into Rad for the first time on Amazon. I mean, I like the cast, and I still need to finish it. I think it's in my continue watching for the last year. But yeah, like movies like sport movies like that back in the day in the 80s. I mean, what a great time.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think I'm talking to you if these type of movies existed when I was living in Los Angeles because there were so many job opportunities for young actors to do B movies in the 80s that did not exist in any other generation besides the 80s. I've said that many times, from Chopping Mall to this to Rad. There's so many opportunities for young actors, and then young actors you never heard of. They would cast nobodies in Hot Dog. Hot Dog the movie is one I definitely want to watch again. They would cast nobodies in those movies, and then you got to the 90s and you go watch Scream and it's all name actors. So they
Right.
went away from just taking a chance on a Kevin Bacon in Friday the 13th to casting name actors. I think that's the one thing I think I kind of miss about
Right.
Hollywood, seeing somebody for the first time on something, saying, you know what, that guy's going to be a star at some point from this movie. I think that's a cool way to watch movies.
Now if you could cast your 20-something self in an like 80s testosterone fueled film, what one would it be?
Man, Top Gun. I mean, Iceman's character in Top Gun is my
Okay.
all-time favorite. I mean, I love, but Outsiders is a go-to. We haven't talked about it. My favorite movie of all time is Streets of Fire and the Warriors. So,
Nice.
if I could go back and play Tom Cody in Streets of Fire and cool it up, man,
Yeah.
dude,
Are
I would
both
do that
are
too.
both
Yeah,
those Hill?
Both are Hill, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's
Walter
funny because
Hill's awesome.
so I worked for a nutrition company called The Zone for like 3 years. I was the only one that was allowed to take the food to the celebrities, right? And I went into Walter Hill's studio one time, and I didn't meet him, but I met a lot of really cool people doing that. And I so badly wanted to, like, everybody probably goes up to him about 48 Hours, which is a great film, whatever. But how
Yeah.
many people go up and say Streets of Fire was ahead of its time? I think if you remake Streets of Fire now, I think it's a hit. I really do.
Oh, for sure. I think that movie's fucking great. I love that movie.
So good. So good.
And I mean, like, if you had, like, I don't dislike Michael Paré, but, like, if you really, really nailed the casting
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
role, like, that'd
Yeah.
be gigantic.
Yeah. No doubt.
So, getting to the next clip, we asked you what you thought you were like at 12 or 13, and you responded.
Honestly, I loved being a kid. I loved where I grew up. If I wasn't outside playing ball with a couple buddies in the neighborhood, I was always watching movies as well. I never realized the love I had for movies would translate, down the road into wanting to try it. But at that age, I mean, it was Top Gun, Outsiders. Look, I was the guy, dude. I mean, I'll be honest. When I was in high school, 21 Jump Street came on, and I wanted to dress in high school like Johnny Depp did in 21 Jump Street. I wanted the Iceman haircut. I mean, that's who I was. I was heavily influenced by pop culture, and probably more. I mean, even though I'm a baseball sports guy, I was probably much more influenced by pop culture than I was by sport. But yeah, I mean, looking back, I would say, yeah, I was just a rambunctious kid that didn't comb his hair and always was using my sleeve to wipe snot off of. And then HBO came around at some point, and that was a game changer.
So, you didn't envision yourself wanting to make movies at this point. Do you remember what it was that piqued your interest to try to make that first step towards becoming an actor?
Yeah. Great question. So I remember they were filming a movie called Truman in Kansas City with Gary Sinise playing Truman, and they did a casting call for actors. And I went out and I auditioned or whatever you do to be an extra, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate that I was one of the 3 extras who was chosen to have sergeant stripes on his sleeve. So I'm in a scene with Gary Sinise that got cut out of the movie, filmed out in Longview Lake. And Gary Sinise comes in, and I was a history major in college, so I just studied this scene, which was pretty wild. And he comes in and he rips off all of our sergeant stripes and removes us. And I was fortunate enough to be able to talk to Gary Sinise there and get some advice from him. A year later, Dee Wallace Stone, the mother in ET, was doing a acting class for a week in Kansas City. I went, I did it. I think that was my graduation gift from my parents, actually, the year before I graduated. And she said, Greg, you got to come to Los Angeles. And so I did. And I was my first acting coach when I went to LA. So the bug started hitting me probably late high school into early college. I think my wife will tell you, she and I knew each other when I was at University of Kansas, but I didn't start dating her until my mid 30s. And she said my reputation with everybody was always, this kid's got one foot out the door. Keep in mind, I started playing my baseball career in college in Southern California. So I liked the life. But then coming to KU and just being an average student to below average student, I really, my heart was wanting to go to LA as soon as I could, but I wanted to graduate from college for my parents' sake. So honestly, I graduated in May of 95 and I was in LA by October 8th of 95 was my first day in Los Angeles.
Okay. Now wanting to dress like Johnny Depp in 21 Jump Street makes sense to someone who copped his style from Parker Lewis around the same age.
Yes. Corin Nemec.
That's how I
knew
dressed,
Corin. Yeah, that's
really?
great. Yeah. I knew. So Corin and obviously Ethan was in that show as well. I tell people all the time, I was very fortunate to have a group, and you, Josh, we've talked about this before. I was very fortunate in LA to have a group of people around me that were celebrities or became celebrities. And I was, if TMZ existed when I was there, we wouldn't have been able to do most of the stuff we did. We played softball every Sunday on Poinsettia Park. I mean, I could tell you the people that played softball out there were A-listers all the way. I mean, just great. Scotty Ian of Anthrax, Ben Stiller. I mean, just amazing people. But I met Corin. I worked at the Formosa Cafe when I first moved to LA.
Oh, sure.
Corin was there. Ernie Reyes Jr. was his good buddy. I don't know if you recognize that name. But yeah, Ethan Suplee used to come out to our softball games because he was good friends with Toby and all those guys, and they would all play. Corin Nemec. Yeah, for sure. Parker Lewis can't lose.
Yeah, I fucking love that show. Now, were there any points in time where you wanted to dress like any characters in Gymkata?
Well, I mean, of course. I mean, Josh, you're an unbelievable interviewer, but that might be the dumbest question you've asked. I mean, who doesn't watch Gymkata? I really think that I should have shown up today in some ball hugger shorts and a tight
vibrant
shirt.
red sweater.
I wanted to put the sweat marks right here. Just they're always that's where we sweat right here, like all the actors have.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a shitty haircut. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of hair anymore. But yeah, dude, come on. Who doesn't want to look like Gymkata?
You toy
with the minions that are the ninja people? That's a Halloween costume waiting to happen.
Oh, for sure. Now, did you toy with sporting his business-like mullet?
Yeah, I mean, curls for the girls, my friend. Curls for the girls. That's what I call it. I had a mullet in high school, and our baseball team, we would shave racing stripes inside of our head.
Sure.
So that's what the look. I can show you pictures where I've got the curls in the back for the girls, and then the racing stripes down.
That would be so in right now.
Josh is not kidding.
I'm dead serious.
The mullet has found its way back into.
Yeah, they don't brush their hair. They have like this lettuce hair, or they have the bullets, right?
Yeah. So what about Gymkata left you most shocked or surprised, like 34 years later?
Man, my son said it best. He said, Dad, I think my son's going to be a budding filmmaker. He loves film. He said, Dad, if you gave me $1,000, I could do this movie for you.
What would he do with the extra 900?
Yeah. Make Funko Pops of all the characters is what he would do. That's what he would get, a Funko Pop, relationship, make Funko Pops.
Yeah, that's a surplus.
Yeah. Man, just so, gosh dang it, man. What a beautiful movie in so many ways, that just beautifully bad. My takeaway now is, my goodness, I mean, what's the point? Like, what's the point of this film? And Sean, I feel like, honestly, if you were an agent to actors, I think Kurt Thomas would become a star, because I think you would have mentored him and showed him the why of the character, have him fill out a journal of a breakdown of his character before he even does the filming. I mean, I feel like that might be your calling, to be an acting coach for people like, I mean, like I find sales jobs for former college and professional athletes. But if I ever get one that says, you know what, I kind of think I'd like to try the arts, I would love just to send them up to you and break down
ready
how
to take those calls. It's too late for me to help Kurt.
Let's bring back these type of movies again. Yeah, too late for Kurt. Yeah.
We're watching this one for Kurt, you guys.
Yeah. I want to pour some out for Kurt later on.
Yeah.
Josh, I think just how bad this film is, and just looking up to see what happened to the actors afterwards. I mean, the princesses continue to work, in movies over the seas. The bad guy that has done a pretty good body of work.
Yeah, Richard Norton's done a lot, and he's like
Yeah,
still a working stunt coordinator because he was a stunt
yeah.
coordinator on this too.
Oh, of
But
course he was.
he's
Yeah,
playing Commander Samir.
yeah.
And yeah, he has. Did you guys look into him at all?
Mm-mm.
Yes, yes.
Did you see what he started his entree into the entertainment industry was?
No,
He was a bodyguard for rock stars in the 70s. So like Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks Solo, David Bowie, the Stones. He was a bodyguard for them.
makes sense. Makes sense.
And he trained with Benny Urquidez, who's
Yep.
Cusack's kickboxing
Yep.
like coach.
Shows up in a lot of
That was
Jackie
in
Chan
Gross
shit,
Point
too.
Blank with him, right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
he's the one he kills in the
Yeah, in the locker room.
scene,
Or the,
yeah.
the locker scene. Yep, yep.
Mhm.
Wow.
But he also like trained with Chuck Norris. Like
He's
he
a
trained
Jackie
with,
Chan guy. He's a
yeah,
he
uh-huh.
fights Jackie Chan in like 3 movies.
In 3 movies, yeah, including Mr. Nice Guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's got a really impressive body of work.
Yeah.
Now, upon rewatching this, are you surprised you didn't have any Salem's Lot style recurring nightmares about Gymkata growing up?
The Two-Face mask guy, yeah, without a doubt. I don't know why. I don't know why that character freaked me out the way it did. But I definitely, as soon as that character showed up, I looked at Chance and said, "That's the guy that really freaked me out." And he's like, "Why?"
Yeah.
But that character for sure gave me, yeah, I could have seen a situation where I'm watching that movie and I cover my eyes when that character comes on back in the day. I mean, I had a lot of, my imagination would have ran wild with that character for sure.
It's it's only now am I thinking about it. Like that's the same scene where we get the priest, right?
Yes, yes.
So like both these guys have something that's revealed on the other side
Yeah,
of who they are.
yeah.
It's almost like when Kurt Thomas sees those buttocks, like it gives him like like maybe something is not what it's cracked up to be, and he's able to
Gomez was right.
Yeah,
Gomez was right.
he's
But
able to
the
intercept the
slow
knife in time.
reveal of the Two-Face, you see it in the background, you think it's just a statue. And that's when I said it to Chance, and he's like, "Which one?" I go, "That one right there. That's about to be a creepy guy." Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, your son may not have been too upset about it because you
You
tipped the
spoiled
hand.
it.
You
Were you worried? Were you worried that it would scare him too much?
But if I'm
No,
if I'm
no. But
your son
it's
watching this at home by myself and that happens,
he
like, oh, okay.
he wants to watch another one of my movies. We tried to watch when he was like 12, The Last Starfighter, that scared him when he was 12. The alien that changes faces. So at 15 now, I think he's ready to. And he's watched some scary stuff. I mean, he loves aliens, Alien. We watched Jaws together, so I think he's ready to tackle Last Starfighter again. But I won't tip him off next time. You're right, you guys. I should not have done that.
No, let him have his trauma.
Yes. We'll watch the new Salem's Lot and see if it scares him like it did. The old one scared me.
I bet the new one will be effective.
Yeah, probably so.
There won't be like a moment of clarity when you're in your 20s where you see the thing for the first time as an adult and like all the illusion, is
Ended it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I've talked to, I have friends that are psychologists. I've talked to people about that specific moment so many times. It's amazing the power of what's really interesting for me, real quick, with the Salem's Lot scene when the ghost comes, or the vampire comes up the window. My nightmare wasn't always a vampire coming up the window. It was always some sort of scary type creature or person that would float up to my window and tap on the window. That's what it was. So it'd be a scary old woman or a somebody in a costume or whatever. That's what it was. It wasn't the vampire. It was just the floating up to the window and the tap, tap, tap. Yep.
Was it the nimble old woman from Gymkata coming up to the window?
Yeah, I'll tell you what
a double whammy that would be.
Yeah, that would. I mean, you can't outrun her. How was she the Yakmala queen of the Olympics at some point?
I mean, she She had killed so many other people probably, but
Oh,
she
yeah.
had never gone up against
She
somebody
killed
who.
Gomez. She
Yeah,
killed Gomez.
but Gomez didn't know how to palm a horse, Greg. Sorry.
Yeah.
I like to like it. That first fight scene is so um informative for the rest of the movie, right? Like the scene in the Tangiers
Yeah.
like place or wherever we are, because we get to see Kurt do all of his shit, and not only do we get to see all this, fancy footwork, but they have no idea how to deal with him, right?
Yeah.
Like there's
Right.
no final boss, even Zamir, who is prepared for a guy who can flip around and do this kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like in that scene, there's actually somebody who like passes out just from watching the flip.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Do
get
you,
hit, and he
do you
just kind of
think? Do you think
convulses.
yeah, do you think it's pretty clear that this game has continued on to this day and somehow that country is implemented? Like in baseball, we have an advanced scout to go out and scout your opponent before you go to battle. Do you think that we've, assuming this game's going on in 2024, don't you think we've probably advanced to the point where, the leader is now sending a scout to watch the
Well, see,
competitors so they can prepare how to fight them?
that's if we're under the assumption that this is done, like say every year, why wouldn't you release like Ivan Drago next year? And your wish is, I want to get rid of the Star Wars defense system.
Mhm.
Like, can you negate a
Yeah.
previous winner's wish? I guess, and then they'd have to send Kurt Thomas back in '86.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's just, I mean,
Just back and forth.
that's what they say, right? It's mutually assured destruction, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like,
but
it's just,
you're Sean, you're awfully cocky to think that finally after 900 years an outsider wins and Ivan Drago is going back the next year and winning again. That's two. I mean,
hey,
that's like saying the Cubs are going to win a World Series again, after the last one, right?
Isn't
have
it
you
crazy that they
have you
never won another?
have you seen Ivan Drago?
I have. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, just
Have
saying.
you heard Sly talk about when he caught a full punch?
Oh,
from-
fucking decked. I like what, collapsed a rib or lung or
Oh,
something. I mean, it was like,
broke multiple. I think it was broke multiple ribs and bruised his heart or something.
oh,
And he's a
Like,
genius. He's a genius too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's incredibly smart.
yeah. He wasn't going to MIT.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grace Jones. I mean, yeah. Wow.
he fights for him, Greg. Just so you know,
Yeah,
fights
it
for him.
is. Do you think there was anything to this featuring an Olympic athlete that appealed to, like, specifically to your younger sports obsessed self?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think again, people that didn't live in that era, Olympians were rock stars back then. I think they are a little bit now, but back then, I mean, before social media, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think the athleticism and all that stuff it's a game. It's a game. You compete in a game. So I think anything like that would be something that I would relate it to, right? How do you compete and how do you win?
Now, Sean and I are a couple years too young to have a gauge of this. Like, the first Olympics I remember is '88.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But was Kurt Thomas someone you knew because of his history as a gymnast, or did you know he was a gymnast because of Gymkata?
I knew him as a gymnast. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was 4 in '76, but I definitely knew who he was. I do know, my dad always did a really good job of also he and I, again, he's kind of the reason why I love movies, but
Sure.
he also was the type of guy that I talk, my son and I both are from the same. We ask a ton of questions. We talk probably more than we should, meaningless questions over and over again. And I'm sure that my dad and I had conversations about Kurt Thomas at some point. So yeah, I knew who a lot of the Olympians were at that time. Sports
Okay.
Illustrated, I got that every week. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and he was definitely, like, going into 1980, he was easily the top 1 or 2 male gymnast from the U.S.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it would
for
make
sure.
sense that you would know him then. Now, if you could program your own block for a cable channel, what would you air Gymkata with now?
Which cable channel would I put it on?
No, like, if you could just, like, had a block of, like, 5 movies.
Oh, sure. Let's go The Wanderers.
Okay.
Let's go The Warriors. Let's go Streets of Fire. Let's go Gymkata. And I want to say Last Starfighter. But I'm going to throw Remo Williams in there. That's the other movie I thought you would maybe choose.
It was
Joel Grey, Fred Ward.
We almost went
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. Remo Williams, man, The Adventure Begins. It never happened. And The Adventure Begins. I mean, come on, you got to have sequels to that movie.
And I mean, it even has the end titles that, like say it's continuing. It's a bummer. That never happened.
No doubt. Remo Williams would be on there for sure.
Fred Ward's super fun.
Yeah, no doubt.
What's The Wanderers? I'm not familiar with.
Oh, Wanderers is a 1979 movie. The main star is Ken Wall. It is definitely a movie that's got a cult following. It's about a bunch of inner city. It's kind of similar to The Warriors, but it's a bunch of gangs in New York that have to fight and establish territory.
Okay.
There's a
Young Karen
Chinese.
Allen.
Yeah, it's a great. It really, honestly, I hope you watch it, Josh, and just send me a text. It's a good movie. It really is.
No,
another movie I watched with Michael Lee. Yeah, another movie I watched with Michael Lee for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. Josh, watching.
I'll probably watch it tonight.
A movie on gentle nudging, impossible. He's already watching it. He just brought it up.
Yeah, it's on right now.
It's mid podcast.
It's funny because in the Warriors poster, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, they show all these gangs in the Warriors poster, and one of the gangs is a Baldy gang, which is not in the Warriors, but they are in the Wanderers. So I'm thinking it's the same studio or something. I don't know what the correlation is, but I've always noticed that about the Warriors poster is you see this gang of Baldies, but they're not in the Warriors, but they're in the Wanderers. So it's interesting.
Canonically, let's hope it's the same universe.
Yeah,
it has to be.
We could do a mashup then. We could
imagine if the DJ from the Warriors was in like 3 or 4 different movies over that span.
The Carmen Sandiego voice.
Yeah, the commish.
Yeah.
She was a good actor. Outside of just VO and those ruby lips.
Yep.
Is it Glenn Thurman? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about watching movies with your dad being a central part of your youth and how you've carried that tradition on with your own teenage son. Did you watch this with him, and what were his thoughts, if so?
Yeah, he kept just looking at me going, "What is this?" He had fun though. Yeah. And
the right question.
I might or might not have asked him to show me his best Gymkata moves at the end, right?
Okay.
Because I think that's passing of the torch, right? You got to do that.
Sure.
So, he clearly went to the corner of the couch and did a, jump up kick off of that.
Was anything broken?
No, nothing was broken. Nothing was broken. I was very proud. My heart was very proud of him, because look, I mean, we raise our kids to be confident and, whether it's baseball or football or acting, whatever, but man, when your kid can Gymkata, Gymkating is how many kids can be a Gymkater, so yeah, I was pretty proud.
Is it Gymkata or Gymkatist?
You can any way you want to spin it. Gymkating is really what it comes down to, but I think
appreciate the verb.
I do think you cheapen it when you don't say Gymkating though. I think it's Gymkating. Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with you liking Gymkata, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do you think Gymkata had problems with this?
I would hope so. I would hope he's a competitive guy. Pitched in 4 different decades. 1959 was his rookie year, ended in the 80s. I would think he would. I bet you there's a lot of times where, on the streets, people obviously naturally talk about Gymkata a lot, where Gymkatas walk by and they go, what are you talking about? But they're obviously talking about Gymkata.
Must just ruin every walk, for him.
Yeah. He couldn't walk for 3 years. He couldn't go outside because he was.
And that's maybe why a lot of people do call him Kitty Cat, because he got too many times. He just got confused.
I wonder if we should.
Well, my son, he enjoyed it. I'm not saying he's going to watch it again. I mean, there's not movies like that now.
He's going to watch this with friends at college. That's going to happen.
He can't stand Streets of Fire, which really drives me nuts. Like that movie, he thinks that movie's terrible. I'm like, you're going to watch it again.
Oh, that movie's so fun.
Loves The Outsiders, though.
I think though, I mean, maybe Greg, you were an exception, but I think Streets of Fire might not be for kids. I mean, I don't think that they would appreciate it. Again, maybe you're the exception, but I think Gymkata is so much more kind of superficial that, like, I would love to just be behind a pane of glass watching a group of boys watch Gymkata for the first time, like as a focus group,
Yeah.
just to see what their reactions are to something like this. Just like with no pretense, don't like tell them why we're putting it on there, and just let them experience Gymkata raw.
I did that with Flash Gordon, with my son and
Nice.
his friends with Flash Gordon like 5 years ago, and told him at one point I thought it was better than Star Wars. That was fun.
Oh, that
That
won't
was
set
fun.
them up for disappointment.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. Yeah.
It's got a better soundtrack for sure.
Great soundtrack. Unbelievable. Yeah.
I have it on, like, I have it on vinyl.
Yep.
Like,
I have that album too. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so through into the next clip, we asked what memories stuck out to you most about your experience with Gymkata, and you reminisced thusly.
I think trying to reenact the scenes, like, your imagination's nuts, right? So I had a buddy that would come over and we would watch it and we would reenact scenes, right? With a broom instead of the pitchfork, or practice. You just, it's like you practice your karate moves, right? You practice the pommel horse move with the legs up in the air. I mean, I think it's just one of those movies that at that age, it's like the guy that watches Rocky and then goes out and thinks he can fight everybody. That Eddie Murphy line. Oh, you watched Rocky, didn't you? That's kind of what you did to me, right? It just got me going, and I definitely thought that I probably could take down a few people with my Gymkata moves if I needed to.
Sure. Did you ever get up on the horse?
No, I didn't. I think I tried. Remember trying to. So we had an old couch in our basement that had kind of that pommel horse edge, and I remember thinking that like I was doing the pommel horse and kicking my buddy, whatever, and I mean, I honestly, I can remember. I don't think that I've thought about this memory until you just brought that up. I definitely remember doing the Gymkata, and I'm sure my parents were upstairs going, "What the heck are those boys?"
That makes me smile, man. That gives me a good memory. I mean, I can smell our house there.
Yeah.
I can see myself at that age. I can see Michael Lee or Masa. Michael Lee was who I would have done those moves on the most. Who becomes Kurt Thomas and who doesn't become Kurt Thomas? I mean, that's the battle right there, because there's not two leads. I mean, maybe he would be. I'm not going to say, but I'm pretty sure I know who Michael Lee would choose to play and would have made sure that guy made it through the movie, which is the karate guy in the beginning. But yeah, that's a cool.
Technically didn't die.
Yeah, I appreciate you replaying. When you hear that, it definitely it gets me a little. Yeah, it was cool. It was very cool.
Now, did you reenact any scenes this time?
Just had a chance to it. I just had a chance to it, right? So I
Can we see a shot of your legs to know that you're not in a cast?
Yeah.
Okay, you can move them. All right, didn't tear a hamstring.
That would have been great there if I had the nut huggers on right there. That would have been perfect, right? Oh man, save that for the end.
You dressed for you dressed like Kurt Thomas would have.
Yeah.
And you are still in touch with Mike Lee.
Yeah, he and I are friends on Facebook. He lives overseas. I saw him when he came back to Kansas City a couple years ago. But yeah, I'll make sure I tag him on this.
Yeah.
I want to have him watch this movie again.
Oh, for sure. And you can watch it. It's not too hard to find if you're willing to watch a sketchy.
But dressing up and stuff like that, so our company Christmas party this year is going to be a Miami Vice theme, which I think Miami Vice is the coolest show of all time. Especially the very first episode, to me, is one of the best first episodes of all, the pilot, right? So, I don't think I could go to my office and be like, hey, we're gonna have a retreat where we dress up like Gymkata. As much as I would like that to be the case, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
How to Lose Friends by Greg Schaum.
How to quickly get voted out of your own company. Yeah, see ya. We don't need that guy anymore.
Michael Mann directed the pilot of Miami Vice.
He did.
Right?
He did.
Yeah. I like thinking of friends' wives having conversations with their husbands, being like, "Greg, is that the Gymkata guy? The guy that's always talking about Gymkata and wanting to do Gymkata parties." And that's Greg.
Yeah, that's Greg. My wife and I do have a bunch of theme parties all the time. She loves it too. But yeah, man, Gymkata. I just don't know if we're going to get many returns on our invites for that one.
American Anthem.
Which is disappointing.
First.
Which is disappointing. Very disappointing. My friends that they wouldn't want a Gymkata at our house.
Would American Anthem fly before Gymkata?
Yeah, it would. I
I mean,
think
what did, like, I thought a little bit of Surviving the Game while watching this, a movie about, a guy who's kind of hunted.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of like natural successors, at least thematically, to kind of this movie plot wise.
Most Dangerous Game too, kind of. If you go back to the
Okay.
Is Surviving the Game the
movie in the
Rutger Hauer
30s.
or
Yes,
the Ice-T one?
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's like he was just like he didn't have an obstacle course, right? And his incentive was his life. But like there didn't really well, I mean, Josh, you probably remember this. Like, was it like survive for 2 days or something? Or what was the
and
like,
Surviving the Game?
Yeah, was it like
I don't remember I thought it was in one night, but I might be wrong.
Okay. But yeah, like, Gymkata, just in terms of plot wise, like there's not a lot where I'm like where I can use Gymkata as like a source to explain another movie,
I had to look up her name, but the Betty Gilpin movie a couple years ago, the girl from Glow, that
Right,
there's
the
yeah.
Hunt.
Yes, The Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of that same idea.
Yeah. I like Betty, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
It's good.
It's good. Yeah, it is. Really good cast.
It came out right. Oh shit! What was it? It got shelved because of the 2020
there's a lot of political innuendos in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a satire.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So throwing to the last clip, we asked what your expectations were for your return to Gymkata, and you responded.
Man, I think we're gonna have some fun. We've already shown we're gonna have some fun, right?
Oh yeah.
I think we're gonna wonder why Kurt Thomas didn't become Bruce Willis. I think that's what's gonna happen here. Why didn't this guy give? I remember him being a very bad actor. I do remember that.
We're not gonna wonder, Greg.
Yeah. I am curious to see if this bad guy that's in it's a bad guy, if he's as bad as I remember him being. I remember there's a character I like a lot that meets his demise at some point, and I was very upset about that. I remember being upset, yet at the same time, not knowing why I was upset. I did, and when people died in movies when I was younger, I took it personally. Like that's a weird feeling to have, right? It's just fiction, but I mean, back then your imagination's wild, and you're so mad that this guy got one over on this character you liked. Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. I do not remember how it ends. I do not remember how he gets there. I don't think he was like a secret agent. I don't remember why he ends up there. But I'm sure it was so well written that they're going to clearly explain. Everything's going to make sense when I watch it of why.
100%.
Absolutely. I mean, I bet you the screenwriters went on to amazing careers, continue to write just amazing stuff. I'm looking forward to looking at IMDb. I won't look at IMDb until after I've watched the movie. I'm curious what happened to some of the people from this movie.
I'm sure it was like William Goldman or somebody. Yeah,
we've had a really great
Robert
track
Towne.
record. Probably Robert Towne. We have had a really great track record. We haven't done an episode of this podcast, Greg, where the script wasn't airtight.
Yeah. You didn't leave there wondering why didn't I make it as a screenwriter, right?
Right. So I imagine Gymkata will continue that trend.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, was there any point where you wondered what might have been for Kurt Thomas as an actor while watching this today?
I can honestly say absolutely not. Yeah. No, I think this was his chariot. This was his golden goose. This was his movie. No, I did not think about that one bit.
Now, the character's death still got to you, right? Was it Gomez?
Yeah, Gomez. I mean, it stinks, man.
It's pretty appalling. He's got like a
not a
stake
hero's
through
death.
him, right?
Yeah, in his
a
neck.
Stake and a pitchfork.
Yeah.
His eyes fucked up.
Yeah. I didn't like it. I didn't like the karate guy dying either. I didn't like that either.
Right.
Same. Yeah, he got screwed. No one deserves
to
get
that guy was gonna win. Yeah.
Yeah. So the writing. Did everything make sense watching it with fresh 2024 eyes?
No, I think that that's going to continue to, it's like Chance always asks me, like, what did Tenet mean? Or, what did this movie mean?
No,
I mean, this is
no
one
one
of the,
knows what Tenet means.
that's
No.
what this movie is. This movie is, it makes you, driving down I-35 and you think every once in a while Gymkata will come up and you'll get little pieces. Eventually your mind will make it make sense to you. That's the beauty of cinema, and that's the beauty of great writing like Gymkata. And I think that's what it'll do for me till the end of my days.
Now, obviously, there we wondered if Kurt Thomas was a SAG member. Unfortunately for the world, the man, the myth, the legend, passed away in 2020 upon suffering a stroke. So he obviously can't be SAG anymore. He was 64, and with his death, we lost our chance at a full redemptive Rocky Balboa style swan song. It does seem like he probably did all right for himself, having run the Kurt Thomas Gymnastics Training Center in Frisco, Texas, with his wife, gymnastic choreographer Rebecca Jones, which hosted a competition endorsed by USA Gymnastics annually starting in 2003. R.I.P. King. Okay, so moving on to picking up the scraps. Is there anything that we've missed that anybody wants to talk about?
I mean, the sound effects in this movie, it's like the Batman show in the 60s.
Yeah.
They should have just put writing in there. Kapow. The screaming by the guy. They didn't put the Wilhelm scream in there, but they should have.
I was shocked. I was really expecting to hear it and never did.
There's a thug who screams.
When
and
he's tossed over the
balcony,
the side of the balcony.
Yeah, and I believe he goes, "Ow!"
Yeah,
like he actually goes like a little kid. Ow! I'm like, yeah, it hurts, man. I get it, but I just don't know if that's Parmestani. I like that. For whatever reason, we suddenly are like thrust into whitewater rafting. like
with very bad matches for doubles.
Yeah, when were they trained? I mean, maybe you should have spent more time whitewater rafting and less time doing like handstand stair walking.
Yeah.
Because that shit you actually needed to know how to whitewater raft.
I did like how quickly there was like, no, we're not fucking around. We're jumping straight to the training sequence.
Yeah.
I mean, by what, minute 4, it feels like? It's probably not, because the open rolls a little slower than you'd think, but it's fast.
Yep. Bye-bye girl that was cast as our lead actress. Move on to training montage, introduce new girl. That girl's, again, my imagination goes to so many places. Like, where's that girl now? I mean, like, what was that? Like the girl in the Back to the Future. Like, what's their mindset now? She missed out on being a big part of Gymkata.
I mean, probably went on to like one of those Andy. Oh, god damn it! Fuck now. Why can't I think of his name? Andy
Circus. Warhol.
Sudeikis or something. Not Sudeikis, but like that. The one who his claim to fame is like finding a hot girl in the stands to cut to during football games.
Yeah.
But he did like Malibu. All of the names have like Hawaii or Malibu or like
I know you're talking. I know you're
name
talking
and
about
one other word.
Yeah. Yep.
I wish I could. I'm irritated that I can't think of his name. I did love the Town of the Crazies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that the foot chase in Zagreb or wherever the fuck they were, I think that also kind of worked, and they got some production value out of shooting and bumfuck nowhere.
Mm-hmm. The extras in this movie are phenomenal, and the crazies are phenomenal. I mean, it just they're all there. If there's a Hall of Fame for extras, this movie, that's where their claim to fame is going to be.
This movie created so many probably Soviet jobs.
Yeah. Well, if any of them knew they were actually in a movie, I mean, they might have just said, "This is how life's going to be for the next couple of weeks." The cameras, if you see one, then just act normal.
Now, are we meant to believe that Kurt Thomas's character got blown by that old lady?
Oh yeah, in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's like okay, just kind of laid back. I imagine that she's a professional cuddler.
How
Um,
do we not? How do we not talk about her until now? You're. Oh, I'm so glad you.
and her
Wow.
blacked out teeth.
Yeah. 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 I think
So
she.
wild.
I think she gummed him. I think she gummed him.
What
Yeah.
was it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just so weird to be like, okay, like it felt like those ninjas were trying to kill him, right? And then he gets knocked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's his entry into Parmistan, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how he's kind of incorporated into the competition. But like, is also part of the test not being like impaled?
Yeah.
Like you have to knock out 5 or 6 ninjas before they inevitably knock you out. Like
Yeah.
very unclear on the protocol.
Just to cover the bases, also the two bodyguards that are killed in the scene, and then he leaves and he comes back, and the entire town is gone. Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's gone. But the other one is we haven't talked about the guy that sent him over there, right? Or
Who
the
I think
guy
is
that
called
he
Paley, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and then the guy that tells him he got double blackmailed by the stork or whatever that guy's name was. Those two characters. I mean, they're lost in the greatness of all the other casts. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like
sure.
they didn't steal their scenes. They're there. They're
Mhm.
actors.
We could have
Respect
used it. We could
for
have
knowing your
definitely,
lines.
yeah, instead of a freeze frame with like a quick little like here's what happened, we could have used that coda, right? With the CIA guy with Paley coming back
Yeah.
and like here's let's reiterate to the audience what the stakes were and that you fucking did it. You're a
Yeah.
goddamn gold medalist. Like even
They
write
could
that
only
line in
afford to
there,
put him
right?
up in Zagreb.
You got the gold medal in saving America. Whatever. Like that
They
line
had him
wouldn't
for
have
2
been
days, Sean.
out of place. He brought a big gun because boy, Stork
He
really
sure
fucking
did.
took it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do like Kurt Thomas's reaction when he gets double crossed by Stork. Like he just turns with the gun. He goes, "Oh shit," which is how I hope I would react
Yeah.
if
Uh-huh.
I was betrayed. And like
What was his
somebody I
line? They got
trusted.
something double crossed. It was something else he said though. I can't remember what it was. Like we got two-time double cross or something. Yeah. I don't remember what it was.
There is a
Yeah, I
saving
don't remember the
grace.
line.
There is a very small saving grace that this movie doesn't go down the road of having the character tell the protagonist, never trust anyone, be the one that betrays the protagonist.
Yeah.
Thank God Paley wasn't the one that like fucked over Kurt Thomas here, because the God, if you have to take a drink every time that happens in a movie, you'd be an alcoholic. So a little bit of restraint that it ends up being the stork that
Yeah.
first tries to do it.
Yeah.
I'll say that Kurt Thomas was nominated for a Razzie for Worst New Star for this.
Who
This is
won?
his only... I don't know. I didn't look. I kind of think the Razzies are bullshit, so I don't
Yeah, whatever.
like to talk about them that much. But
And
this is
probably went to
also
like
based.
Slide Stallone for some something then because he's a bigger name and it gives him more publicity, right? So yeah.
This is based on former investment banker and OSS regional chief Dan Tyler Moore's 1957 pulp novel, The Terrible Game, which he had expanded from a short story he'd had published the year prior in the Saturday Evening Post. In the novel, a young man is asked by his country to travel to a secluded medieval country to compete in a life-or-death competition, The Terrible Game of Ott, where the contestants endure a physical trial where they complete several feats of strength and agility while 100 men try to kill the competitor, all to secure that country as a strategic military stronghold. So obviously the bones are pulled directly from that to this. And then it was adapted by Charles Robert Carner, who later adapted Blind Fury from the Zatoichi series.
Yeah, this was
Zatoichi's great.
Yeah.
This was a book. This was a book that got adapted to a screenplay.
This was a book. I don't know that the young man was an Olympic gymnast in the book, but I get why you would kind of make that. I mean, karate movies are the craze. Karate Kid's 84, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it kind of makes sense to me. that you'd want?
Oh, that was American Ninja. I mean, there's so many karate movies back then. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Karate Kid was what easy top 10 at the box office and higher than that, I think.
Yeah.
So, major gripes. Starting with Greg, if you've got one, what was your biggest gripe with the film this time?
I don't have any. I mean, look, this is people always talk about, great directors always talk about that they saw Jaws and they want to be directors, right? I think it's very clear that Gymkata is the secret to Tarantino's success and all the great young Christopher Nolan. Here's my gripe. That they don't admit that. My gripe is that they don't admit that they were influenced by Gymkata.
They're cowards.
A gripe with other people is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've talked about how this movie is missing massive scenes in terms of building a movie and building a narrative. You know, when Colonel Troutman recruits Rambo to go back and rescue the Vietnam prisoners of war, like there's so much that the audience is along for in that, you know, and there's a betrayal that happens there, right? But like our world has been built out for us so much more, even for people who missed First Blood can jump into Rambo 2 and go along with that movie. We've missed so much of this setup with Kurt Thomas. We see him do this, you know, these parallel bars, which if I'm doing parallel bars, I'm yelling at the spotlight guy, fucking keep it on me. Like this opening credit sequence, I'm like, I kind of need to know what I'm doing here. I kind of have to see. But I think also this movie could have really benefited from just like a smart, able sound design. The sound effects are off so much. They're at times massively loud, like Indiana Jones level punching and kicks. The entire movie's 80 yard, right? Like I don't think we have any audio that we're recording in the moment there.
I think it was entirely.
This thing is dubbed so fucking hard.
Well, you know how movies were shot in Europe then, right?
Well, they're doing.
Crew would be talking on set the entire time,
there's
if camera's rolling and sound is rolling.
And again, with like this many people and this many languages, right? Like they're not getting anything native. No. But you gotta have a really good sound designer to come in there and sync things up. And so for every punch and kick that is off by a second and a half, you're just kind of like, takes me out of it. Took me out of it.
Yep. I mean, I definitely agree with having to ground everything, really. Having to like flesh out the motivation for the main character, having to like, you know, build, like give the hero's journey like a strong foundation to work from, and they don't do that. But how would we fix this for today? Starting with Greg, if you've got a fix.
How would we fix this movie today?
If you were making this movie now, what would be your big fix for this?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think you go out and you get yourself an athlete that's popular now. You play Kurt Thomas. You know, let's say you get Bobby Witt Jr. to play Kurt Thomas's character. Instead of karate, he hits baseballs at the bad
What about like
guys
a Ronda Rousey, you know, or somebody?
Oh
like
yeah,
that
yeah,
has like a
Ronda
judo
Rousey
background.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, Bobby Witt's stretching a little too far. That's my Royals fan, but yeah, you get John Bones Jones or one of the UFC guys, or you know, Simone.
Maybe
Biles
someone more likable than John Bones Jones.
Simone Biles, is that her name? Simone Biles, is that her name? I mean her. Yeah, why not bring her in to do this for sure? You know, or have two of them do it. You know, do the movie. You know, establish the romance a little bit more. I think people want that. You know, the rom-com idea of Gymkata is probably pretty attractive to bring in a new demographic of an audience. You know, get a kick-ass
quadrant this motherfucker, right?
Kick-ass soundtrack behind it. Yeah, I mean, look, Gymkata is a brilliant movie, but in today's world, how do you capture the new generation? You got to bring in more demographics, right?
Yeah.
I think it'd be really hard to do seriously, especially if you're using an athlete. I think you would you could do this plot, but I think you'd almost have to be doing it as a comedy. You'd have to get Andy Samberg as, disgraced ex
Yeah,
gymnast, Vitali, whatever, and have
yeah,
him and, like flesh out the motivations and play things for laughs and have his, say his sequence where he's using parallel bars in an alley, like they've brought in every possible gymnastics equipment to kind of help him.
yes,
Like there's an
yeah,
entire like
Yeah.
floor exercise built out. Um, or he's always finding um, you know, deposits of chalk in the wild that he can,
Yeah.
you
yeah,
know,
You basically MacGruber this.
you could,
yeah.
yeah, you kind of MacGruber it. It just this Gymkata is like a time capsule, right, of the early '80s. It's just I don't know how you could do it.
You could do it like the Tropic Thunder style, where they're making the movie, but we're watching the making of the movie. That would be kind of fun too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Josh has as an idea on how to pull this off today, sticking within this genre, but yeah, I don't know. I just think it's still of its time.
I've been sitting here trying to think of an athlete who I think is charismatic enough to be able to pull this off.
See, that's the thing too, right? Like, I think you can't. I think you get the actor and you give them the
Travis
backstory that
Kelsey,
they're an Olympic athlete. I haven't
Travis
seen Travis
Kelsey.
Kelsey act. Um,
Yeah,
Oh no, he's really good in what Moonbase 6. I mean, he's playing himself, but
yeah.
he's really good in the first episode of that.
you
The
know
He's
who's a
great in
good
that. He's great in SNL too.
yeah.
Yeah.
a good athlete that doesn't get a lot of accolades in terms of his acting was Alexander Goodenough.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, to play a slime ball in Money Pit to a terrorist in Die Hard, um, professional ballet dancer. I mean, I think he's a better actor than Mikhail Baryshnikov.
I don't know how you would do it with basketball as a skill set, but I think Ant would be really good
Yeah,
because
yeah,
Ant's just so fucking funny.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
But again, I don't know how you do it with basketball. Like, I think it needs to be a more combative thing.
I
And
didn't
I'm
think
just
gymnastics was combative, so we got to get creative, Josh. Maybe it's
just
a
throwing basketballs at people
maybe
or
that's
He
basketball
dunk.
shaped objects.
He dunks over the crazies and
Uh,
hits them all with his knees as he jumps
yeah,
over them.
yeah.
Yeah. Andy
God,
Samberg, that is brilliant. I mean, those that whole his group would be. I guarantee they've seen this movie, and I guarantee
oh
that this is
yeah.
a movie that they probably have smoked a little bit around each other and said, "Let's do this film." I would believe that they've actually thrown that idea out at some point. Tacone with it is Alex Tacone, or what's his partner's name? I can't even think his name. Who's got
Jorma
yeah,
Jorma
Jorma Tacone.
Chacone.
Yeah, Tacone. That would that's right up their alley.
Okay, Saving Graces. What was your favorite moment or element of the film? Starting again with our guest, Greg.
Favorite element of the film. I mean, the crazies is going to probably be number one with everybody that watches this film. So I'm going to go away from that. I'm going to say uh, just the build up to the relationship between the two leads is so well done that I felt like I really believed their love for each other.
Oh yeah, they cut to
So,
her
so
watching him train so many times.
yeah, and she doesn't speak, and then he brings her out of her shell.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, let's yeah, just to kind of tug at that heartstring that relationship is for me the saving grace.
I think the fight scenes for me, just because they're unique, you see a lot of, obviously in martial arts and action movies, everyone has a style. Jackie Chan is very different from like a Carl Weathers. Um, they don't do the same
I love that
moves,
those are the
right?
two you pulled.
Yeah, it was the first name that popped up. I was like, who's not like Jackie Chan? Um, but like nobody is gonna fight like Kurt Thomas, right? And I think like just the novelty of it got me. Him just being able to kind of incorporate what he is absolutely best at. I can imagine being like one of the thugs or like a boss character and just being like beside myself of like, just fucking hit him, just get him. Like he's on a pommel horse. Just just don't wait, right? Like
This is the
the
second time we've had
Yeah.
a scene like that, because in Return to Oz there was also the scene with the spinning
right.
spinning robot guy where like all you need to do to
Rush
not
him.
get kicked
Yeah.
is like not
Like you
not
just
go within 2 feet of him.
in the town of crazies, if they just all went at the same time, Kurt Thomas
Yeah.
is dead.
For sure.
Yeah.
But God,
But they wait their turn.
they love those interval attack formations, don't they?
But are they dead? Are they dead if all the guys fight together against the crazies? I mean, that's the other thing we have to think about. Yeah.
Well, they're all dead before they get there, though.
I know,
except
but
for Thor.
Yeah, Thor, right?
I did like when he ran across the back of the pigs.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was a real move.
I think that was
The
actually
poor pigs.
maybe my favorite moment of the scene,
Ah,
or
pigs don't
favorite
care.
moment of the movie.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
you know who didn't like that scene though, right? PETA didn't like that scene, right?
Peter didn't
And
like
those-
that
those-
scene.
And
but
there was no pig wrangler there. I mean, he literally stepped on their backs.
But he's also 5'5". He could have been more than 120. Like pigs are big
Thor,
fuckers.
Thor couldn't walk on their backs.
No.
Thor would trip in the pig crap, and
That's why Thor got it.
yeah,
Yep.
he did. Thor wasn't getting through that window.
No, because Thor's dad wouldn't have helped him. Thor's dad wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think mine is a pig walk.
You
Okay.
always say that.
I know. This is every movie. It's the pig walk.
Pig walk.
All right, so Greg, you returned to Gymkata after all these years with the suspicion that it wouldn't hold up. Moreover, you were pretty sure we'd select this from your list, presumably because of that expectation. Are you glad you finally rewatched it?
Absolutely. I had a blast doing this podcast. First off, you guys are great. Watching it with my son, I watched it again in the office this morning while I was doing some work.
Why not?
I wanted
You have
people to
multiple
walk.
screens, right?
I wanted people to walk by my office because it's on to my right and be like, "What the fuck are you watching?"
Did that
they-
happen?
It did not.
Okay.
I think I'm going to put it on. They all have a couple TVs out there that they watch when they're working their desk. I think I'm going to put it because my Voodoo's set up out there too.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to put it up there next Friday just so they can really enjoy it.
Nice.
I'm the oldest person in this office by like 20 years. So it's like,
Wow.
come on, I got to get some cool points every once in a while. But what a great way to bond me with the 20 somethings.
Mhm.
The Gymkata, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's the next step in my coolness factor with these kids.
So it's safe to say you will rewatch this at some point.
Of course. I mean, I own it now. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Wouldn't. I mean, I wish I could treat it like, the old remote where you're flipping through the channels and it's on, boom, you walk. Because that nobody does that anymore. Everything is, YouTube TV or Direct TV or whatever. I wish I could have a way to set it up so that easy. But yeah, definitely I'll watch it again at some point.
Read the air, Greg. Read the air. It has much to say to you.
Thank you.
All right. I have one question of each of us before we get out of here. Do you plan to Gymkata somebody in the near future?
I mean, almost inevitably, I have to, just given my, the infrastructure of New York City.
Oh, yeah.
It's too big of a temptation not to take advantage of.
Yeah.
Especially if I can
Yeah.
like do a flip in the air that just causes people to faint. No contact.
For sure. Yeah.
You don't want to be touching people in this city.
I don't foresee a scenario playing out in which I don't Gymkata somebody in the next month.
Stay chalked up, Josh.
Yeah.
I'll
always be carrying.
I'm going to get personal here, guys. I feel like we've gotten to that place with each other
Yeah,
in these
sure.
2 hours. You're always, my wife and I have been married, you're always kind of finding a way to kind of spice up life
Yeah.
in that way. So I'm going to do some gymcotting in front of her and see how it gets her going. Right. I
Nice,
want her to
nice,
see me doing some gymcotting and just saying, that's my guy. Right.
Did
there.
you,
And,
Greg,
yeah.
I mean, feel free not to answer this, but did you actually have to talk to your wife before she kissed you?
Did I have to talk to my wife before she kissed me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
I did.
see, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's again, that might be the takeaway from this is like, again, I want kids to be confident.
Yeah. It's a good lesson for young
Kurt
men.
Thomas is just went for it, right? So, yeah, I did
It was
have
a
to talk
bold
to her.
move. I don't know that would fly in today's.
Boldness brings greatness, right? And Kurt
Even
Thomas
if
is,
that
you know,
woman flashes a switchblade,
Mhm.
it's still a
Twice.
green flag for a
Twice.
kiss. That's
Twice.
that's our takeaway.
She had the blade, and she had the other blade.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's probably a better lesson for women
Yeah.
around men.
Yeah.
Always have a second blade.
Yeah.
So before we say goodbye to the listeners at home, where can they find you, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, X, I'm on Facebook, but Instagram and Twitter are always probably the best place to go. Greg_Schaum, or if you are interested in introduce me to anybody that we could help find work, KlutchMFM.com, KLUTCH. But yeah, Greg_Schaum, and then Klutch MFM for the company stuff.
And do you have a letterboxd?
I do, yeah. What am I listed under letterbox?
Here, let me see.
Gymkata Greg.
Yeah, might as well be, right?
Greg Kata.
Gas House Gang,
Okay.
which is the 1930s Cardinals. That's my grandfather's favorite team. So Gas House Gang is
Nice.
my letterbox. Yep.
Yeah, if you need to change it to Shamkata, they'll do that.
I probably need to
change
do
it.
that. I've got a photo of Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday on there right now. I think I need to change it to Gymkata Gang. And yeah, you know what? I'm doing it. So that'll be it.
All right, that's where they'll find you.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for subjecting your childhood to the scrutiny of the Unkind Rewind.
It's a big risk, Greg. It passed.
I loved it, guys. You guys are awesome. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, this was a blast. Thanks, man.
Thanks for
Take care,
making my
fellas.
life complete.
Be the air. Be the air.
Be the air.
You've just listened to another installment of the Unkind Rewind podcast, mining and potentially ruining your childhood for content, one film at a time. Unkind Rewind is a Munchcast production and can be ingested wherever you listen to podcasts and on the Unkind Rewind YouTube channel. Music for this and every other episode of Unkind Rewind was composed by Divorcio Suave. Rate, review, like, and subscribe to Unkind Rewind on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and Good Pods. Links to all our social media accounts are in our show notes, but you'll find us as at Unkind Rewind Pod on nearly every social media platform, all of which are available at our website, unkindrewind.com. If you have a question, concern, complaint, or feedback, you can email the podcast at unkindrewindpod@gmail.com or call into our call-in line, area code 507-479-6440, and leave a message that can be played on air. Fans should join the Munchcast Discord to discuss this or any other episode of the Unkind Rewind with like-minded people. This dialogue may just make it into a future episode of the pod. The Unkind Rewind Patreon will be coming soon, so start squirreling that pocket change away. Thank you for listening to another Unkind Rewind.